So Kanya Cekeshe's legal team says that they are fighting the justice system to clear his name. His lawyer, Wikus Steyl, says that Cekeshe was wrongly advised by his previous legal team. Cekeshe has been incarcerated at the Leeuwkop Prison in Johannesburg since December 2017 after being sentenced to 8 years, of which 3 were suspended. We are now joined in studio by his lawyer, Wikus Steyl from IAN Levitt Attorneys. Very good morning to you, Wikus. We thank you very much for your time. Of course, you said off air that this was quite a personal case for you in seeing Cekeshe being released and, of course, spending the first Christmas in 2 years with his family.
Indeed, it's very personal for me. I remain resolute in Kanya's innocence. I completely believe in him. He got the short end of the stick. He is never supposed to be found guilty. He was definitely never supposed to be in prison. And to spend 2 years in prison at such a young age, it's ridiculous. It has a chance of ruining his life.
So take us through the details of his charges and, of course, your view on the advice that he had gotten from his previous legal team to get him to that point.
So Kanya was found guilty of malicious injury to property and public violence. And I firmly believe he got the complete wrong advice. He should never have pleaded guilty. His guilty plea was based on false information provided to him. For instance, his lawyer said that there's a very incriminating video, and on the video he cannot get past that he committed the crime. But that's absolutely false. I've seen the video, and it's completely opposite to what was said to Kanya. He should never have been advised to plead guilty. The consequences of was never explained to him, and I'm very sure that if he knew the consequences and he knew the true facts and that there is no evidence against him, he would not have pleaded guilty.
How would the outcome have been different if he was advised differently to plead not guilty?
If he was advised to plead not guilty, the state would have had to prove their case against him, and I don't think they would have succeeded. Kanya would have been found not guilty. So,
take us through, it's been a very long 2 years. Take us through the process that you've been going through with the family to now finally see Cekeshe be spending, Christmas with his family in this year.
Well, I've been dealing with the family for just more than a year. Throughout, we've been busy with the appeals and the petitions, and I'm very glad that he gets to spend the first Christmas in 2 years at home, but the fight doesn't stop there. We're still proceeding with the petition for leave to appeal against the conviction and the sentence, and we have to clear his name. It will affect the rest of his life, and I can't allow that to happen.
What basis will you be appealing on?
The sentence is that it's an incorrect sentence. It was harsh. It should not have been imposed on him. It's 8 years for the crimes that he's accused of. It's ridiculous. On the conviction, 2 legs basically. It's that he received incorrect legal advice, and that's unconstitutional. The Constitution says that everyone is entitled to legal representation, and Kanya just did not receive that. The second part of that is that the magistrate made numerous errors. He did not comply with the Criminal Procedure Act, which lays down certain requirements when someone pleads guilty, and he just ignored those requirements and failed to do his job properly.
So what is the process from here on out in taking those appeals further?
So we're still waiting for the High Court to come back to us with a date for the appeal hearing. I wrote to them a couple of weeks ago, numerous letters, waiting for an update. So as soon as we've got a response from the High Court, that matter can proceed, but I do not see it being finalized within the next 6 months.
Now, we understand the family is saying that they will not rest until his name is cleared. How essentially do they want his name to be cleared in terms of having this struck off the record?
It's vitally important. He cannot have a criminal record. It will affect the rest of his life, and he's incorrectly got a criminal record. So we must fight to clear his name and to have just Kanya Cekeshe and not Kanya Cekeshe as the criminal.
Have you spoken to him? Have you seen him? He was released the very early hours of this morning. We do understand, obviously, that the family has asked for privacy at this point in time, but you mentioned this was a very personal case for you.
I spoke with him early this morning. I haven't seen him to visit him, but just from his voice, I can hear he's ecstatic. The last time I spoke with him was in court, and he was despondent and depressed. Speaking to him this morning, he's a changed man. He's so glad to be at home, and finally gets to eat home food, which was one of his biggest wishes.
For Christmas, and you said his dog is also happy to see him.
I just saw the photo on screen. You can see the dog is even happy to see him. It's like the whole country is happy, but the dog looks the happiest.
What is the importance of this case specifically going forward?
It goes into the requirements for any court when a person pleads guilty. The act's not there just for fun and games. It affects a person's entire life. And the Act puts certain requirements on a magistrate or a judge when a person pleads guilty to make sure that that person actually pleads guilty and understands the charges against him. And it's obvious that those procedures weren't followed. So we want to ensure that all cases in future are dealt with properly in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, that no person gets into the same position that Kanya is now because people don't follow the law.
Was this in specific to this being a student case?
Pardon?
Was this in specific to this being a student case per se, in the way in which it was treated in terms of it being a criminal matter, a policing matter?
I think that the biggest point against Kanya was his race and the fact that he did not have money. I say to everyone, if it was a white person that did the same thing, he wouldn't be in the same position that Kanya is now. The fact that he was a student and fighting for free education, or at least cheap education, also counted against him. I think the government was tired of the protest and refused to do anything about it. And when someone took up arms and actually did something about it, they came down with the full might of the law against him.
Was there any political backhand play at this?
Not that I know of, but I suspect there was.
Was there hesitation in that?
I'm not going to go on record about politics. I'm here about Kanya, but I've got my own opinion.
All right, we thank you very much for your time this morning. Lawyer Wikus Steyl from IAN Levitt Attorneys, of course, on the release of their client, Mr. Kanya Cekeshe, who will be spending Christmas home. He hasn't seen home and he hasn't spent Christmas with his family in the last 2 years. Commenting on the arrival, of course, the release of Mr. Cekeshe this morning, and of course more details going forward with regards to taking this case forward, and the family being certain that they want to be clearing Cekeshe's name going forward. Some other news.